If you're growing and scaling a business and you're not investing in building content, you're at a competitive disadvantage in this day and age. Is that fair?
Competing against your competitors, you got to stand out. You got to be different. You have to be present. Yeah. You have to be unique. If you want your business to be acquired, look like a company that someone would want to acquire. If you want to hire really great, talented people on your team, people want to work for winners. You want a buzz. You want some excitement there.
Welcome to the Deal Factory. I'm your host, Jeff Harkness. Each week in studio, we invite CEOs, founders, and executives who are helping companies scale boldly and then exiting brilliantly with private equity and institutional capital. Today, really special, I have Chad Diller in studio. Chad is the CEO of Landscape Leadership. If you're not familiar with Landscape Leadership, they are the premier marketing agency within the green industry, field services, skilled trades world. And again, super excited to have Chad in studio. How's that for a warm-up?
That's quite the endorsement.
Yeah,
I
but
appreciate
it's true,
that. Yeah,
right? For the audience, because the audience doesn't know, your company does produce the Deal Factory in our podcast.
We do.
And so really an honor to have you. We've been thrilled with the results, and we're going to have some fun today, if that's cool.
Let's get into it.
Awesome. So what I want to do is I want to just start a little bit. Chad, talk about your professional journey a little bit. How did you get here today? How did you get into the industry from a specialty perspective?
Yeah.
You know, I'm partial to green industry, facility services types of folks, right? And would love to hear that story a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was a green industry guy first. I didn't actually start out that way. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I went to school for biblical studies.
Okay.
I wanted to be a youth pastor and then, be in the pastoral profession. I joke that, it's all relevant experience because I've been taking confessions of marketing sins from green industry people for years. And helping to, coach them through learning how to have better results. But I started in the field. I had a part-time job, full-time at sometimes, working, bivocationally, doing work in the field. Mm-hmm. I always loved selling. So there was a position at the company that I was working with that for an account manager position, I did that for 7 years, loved it, that consultative selling, helping people find solutions and win. And then I started, I have a passion and an opinion about things, especially about marketing. And so I started being a little critical of some of the things the company was doing from a marketing perspective, had some other ideas, and eventually it led to, hey, well, why don't you do this? And then I started working with other agencies we were working with, turned into a full-time marketing position. And then it wasn't until 10 years ago, so that was, the first probably 15 years of my green industry journey there. And it wasn't until like 10 years ago that I came to work for a marketing agency. And Landscape Leadership, like you said, we've only ever specialized in this industry. So it's been a blast to just be in the industry and stay in it, but just find a different path.
Yeah, but you understand the nuts and bolts of what it takes to run a business because you kind of came up in that world, right? Which is why you guys are so good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed to have a really wide range of experience and then be close to people that had the roles that I didn't necessarily have and hear those inside conversations. And then, it's kind of one of these things you start in a career where your vision's like this is what's about me. And then it gets a little wider as you start moving up or having other opportunity. And now with working with dozens of companies in this industry, it's been very cool because it's validated a lot of the experiences that I and other peers had.
Sure.
And also just made it a more rich experience.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I didn't know all that coming in today.
Yeah, there's a lot to know.
Yeah,
I can tell stories.
Fantastic. All right, so listen, I want to unpack some things for the audience because, my goodness, everywhere that you go today, the transformational changes happening tied to AI, it's everywhere. Yeah. And even on a previous episode, we were talking about how AI just isn't where it needs to be in certain parts of a business. But I want to dig in a little bit and maybe even rapid fire. We'll have some fun with it. I want to kind of start at that lead flow front end and how much the buzz is AI is going to fix it or handle it for you. Can we just start with traditional lead generation that for a lot of people in the audience, forget saw my truck, forget we get referrals, but one of the core kind of marketing requirements is a good website, invest in SEO, search engine optimization, SEM, right? Pay-per-click type stuff. If I'm a business owner today, translate what's going on the front end, because I've had people say, I'm just going to ask AI who to hire, who's the best deal guy in the landscape industry, and boom, it's going to pop up. Can we unpack that and really kind of get deep on this whole SEO, SEM website and how AI is supposedly going to be transformational change? Talk about that.
Sure. So I want to say two statements. First is, don't fall for the hype, but also don't also think things are always going to stay the same. It's very clear things have changed. I'm seeing impacts to traffic on websites because AI is able to supply an answer for certain types of questions instantly. Used to be you'd see something listing in a search results, you'd go to an article and you read it. Now, while people are still doing that, there are a lot of, I'd say, these surface level top awareness questions that people are getting quick answers to. But when they're getting farther in their buyer journey and they want to consider options, they want to vet contractors or professional services like ours, they're doing research. So AI is changing how the consumer is searching. And what I seeing happen is it's making it more complex. It's like a zigzag pattern. Someone may start in an AI engine, they may go to a search engine, they may go over to social media, they may read reviews. They're going all different places. And so it's not yet just eradicating and replacing.
It's not one single source of truth in the eyes of a residential or commercial buyer or prospect. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's true. But also, if you would ignore your website, if you'd ignore traditional SEO, if you'd ignore making relevant, helpful content, AI is not going to think you're a source expert. So they're not going to be citing you anyway. So if anything, I feel like it's reinforcing all the great things we've been preaching all these years about really helping the consumer make a better decision. Now, does it mean you're changing a little bit how you're putting things on pages and in articles? Absolutely. Yeah. But it's really important that you don't ignore those core fundamentals. It's not going to just wipe out the need to have a website.
Yeah. What's the difference between SEM and SEO? Can you define it?
Sure. So
SEO
is search engine optimization. It's a lot of things you're doing both on pages on your website, in the background on pages on your website. Also things you're doing off your website, like directory listings. If you're getting links to your website, that's search engine optimization. Search engine marketing is the pay-to-play game. So most traditionally, it's Google Ads, where you're targeting groups of keywords, you're creating ads for those, and you're trying to drive traffic through paid placement on your website.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit, I think, yesterday at lunch as we were doing a big time photo shoot here and some really fun stuff with content. But you had mentioned at lunch, business owners need to be more aware of the reviews that are being posted online, because we were looking at a couple specific examples of, I'll say, Google reviews, but I think when you're fighting the fight in the skilled trades world and you're out there humping it, particularly it's spring right now, you kind of forget of, well, what are people saying about that? Should it be part of your strategy to make sure that you're reviewing, taking a counter position, and dealing with all of the reviews that are now out online?
Yeah. I mean, your reputation online is extremely critical before AI, after AI. So AI is using that as one data point to say, is this a credible expert? Google, the way that one of the ranking factors that they are using is how many reviews, what's your rating, and what's your review velocity? Meaning, are you consistently getting a few reviews a month or a couple dozen a month on a consistent basis? When it sees that's happening, it's a good signal. Yeah. But from a consumer standpoint, that's what people do. I mean, they're like, should I hire this company or service, and I'm reading reviews. And they're using that as kind of like the red flag or the green flag to engage into the sales process. So it's important to have systems and tools that help you to automate that and to collect that feedback and to be getting reviews on a continuous basis. And if you have some bogus ones on there, there are some ones you can actually get removed that, like if an employee writes you a bad review, Google said you can't do it, you can actually get it removed. So, it's crazy to me that companies just will sit there with a couple hundred reviews and 3 stars and not be doing anything proactively to try to get more great reviews.
Or deal with former employees that are disgruntled, right? And they want to put something out there. There's the ability to get those removed.
Yeah. We were talking yesterday too, the instance we were talking about, a contractor that I looked at, they had all these recent bad reviews, and it was all about how their team was driving. I mean,
driving on the roads.
And Google says that's okay. So it's like, that's a big problem we need to fix. That's getting you bad reviews. And meanwhile, some of those people are probably cutting off your crews too. So
listen, I'm going to do a shameless plug here. If you have Smart Asset, which is a great technology piece of software that is dual dash cams, telematics, and equipment tracking, if I had a bad Google review related to driving from one of my crews, I could just pull up the dash cam and solve that issue. Either way.
Yeah, I mean, you could at least find out the truth on it. I don't know if that'll get your Google review removed, but at least
we can respond.
At least you'd be able to respond, respectfully.
Yeah, awesome, good stuff. Fascinated by all the changes with AI and technology, and it makes some sense. I haven't really thought about, most of the AI agents are going to, content that's out there in the various platforms to, create their answer or their problem solve or whatever, semantics we want to use. Let's talk about content.
Sure.
Every seminar you go to, every marketing agency, it's all about content. Look at us, right? We're having a great time. And it's really been transformational in our business. What are kind of the fundamentals, building blocks? What's the best way to build and develop content where it really starts to drive what I would say is material changes or results in your business?
Yeah, I think you have to start with a strategy and a smart strategy to be different. A lot of our companies in the industry, they're all saying the same things. Then they think they're being different. They're all talking about themselves and still really talking about emotionally and deeply what's important to their clients. So messaging strategy is where you need to start before you start creating content, and differentiators and core themes. And if there's something very unique about your business, that's great. When you have a thread that might start from a unique core value or something fun about your name, you can create a really cool, unique message. So that's where you start strategy first. Now, as far as what types of content, that can take many, many forms. The written content on your website. And then if you get into longer form written content, it's about, we used to say, thought less, thought-ish, or thoughtful content. Try to write as much thought-ish and thoughtful content as you can, and not this thoughtless content. So go deep, create interesting experiences. And you can do that from a written standpoint, but also in video, short form social, all those things are very important.
Yeah. And it almost has to be foundation items of the marketing playbook. Is that it's almost essential, right? If you're growing and scaling a business and you're not investing in building content, you're at a competitive disadvantage in this day and age. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, I think competing against your competitors, you got to stand out. You got to be different. You have to be present. You have to be unique. We've talked about before, like if you want your business to be acquired, like look like a company that someone would want to acquire. If you want to hire people, really great, talented people on your team, people want to work for winners. They want to see a lot going on. They want to have, multiple team members there being showcased. You want a buzz. You want some excitement there.
Yeah. Hasn't that really changed, even at your time as you've been leading landscape leadership? It used to be just content about prospects and customers. And now, given how difficult it is to continue to add labor and build leaders and compete for top talent, you guys are doing a lot of work that is probably more driven towards best in class, employer of choice type stuff. What are some examples there?
Yeah, I mean, if we do a great job on a marketing standpoint, we're creating a problem for recruiting because there's so much demand. Now we have to have people to do the work.
Right.
And as the company scales and grows, you need more levels and layers of leaders. So you need to be attracting that top level talent. So a lot of things that we've been doing are centered around telling team member stories. Can we tell a deep story? Can we show what a day in the life of is? Can we have 2 or 3 team members coming together in a written or video story talking about a very important, relevant issue like diversity or what family really means, or the way that the company has blessed their life beyond the paycheck and the benefits?
Yeah.
Those things they're invaluable. I mean, to get great people there.
Yeah, I think I read recently, or maybe it was at an event where people really gravitate towards stories, right? They're able to learn through storytelling. They're able to learn by who they hang out with, who you surround yourself with. And I think you also learn, particularly at a high level, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts here, is being really guarded on the information that you're putting into your brain. People say, hey, is that corny? The answer is no. You look at some of the most successful, happy, wealthiest people in the country, they're really guarded with who they hang out with. They're really guarded on the information that they put in their head. When you tell stories, and you've educated me so much on this, even in our own work together, people make decisions when you invoke emotions or fix a problem. And too many times we have clients that just want to talk. Right? Yeah. I'm going to fix, I'm going to solve, I'm going to talk too much. And there's really no emotion in the messaging. Even when we were going through some of our scripts and some of the things, I was like, come on. You're like, no, storytell.
Yeah, it's just such subtle shifts sometimes. You say, okay, here's the problem, here's the complexity of it. And the question is, well, Jeff, if that happened to you, how would you feel about that? And then all of a sudden, the next answer that comes out is so much more deep. And people love story because whether we realize it or not, we are all built for connection. Yeah. We all value vulnerability and authenticity. And so if you don't learn how to tell a story, whether it's recruiting or a case study for a marketing asset or sales asset, if you don't learn how to tell that story at a deeper level, again, it's noise. You're going to sound just like every other company out there, every other employer out there. Yeah,
it's really well said and big time nugget there for sure. All right, let's pivot again, kind of rapid fire here. So we're seeing in my world, when you get into really evaluating, the performance of a business, how it's built, what the trends are, we talk a lot about selling to your existing customer base. And, there's really only a couple ways to grow your business. Raise your price, which, by the way, you and I are both shaking our heads. We're for raising prices, particularly in the industry. Second is go get new customers. Keep the ones that you have. Keep your retention high. But also sell them more stuff. Yeah. So I feel like in a lot of the traditional marketing agencies that don't know the niche, that it's all about the new customer. Yeah. Are we missing on speaking to those existing clients and customers and getting them to buy more with specific campaigns? Just unpack that for me.
It's an absolute goldmine. Would you rather sell to somebody that has been happy with your brand for a couple of years or someone that has no affinity and no trust for you? Yeah. It's so much easier to sell to an existing client. Now, there comes a time where you can't sell them anymore. but it's easier. You've already have a relationship, you already have rapport there. And so it's a matter of being purposeful and having a plan of when are these messages, what different mediums are we using to bring these messages in front of our clients? How are we personally stepping into the situation, bringing up certain, opportunities to go deeper with us as a company and provide more value for them. So yeah, that average client value is something that a lot of companies aren't paying enough attention to. And their answer is more leads, more new customers.
Right.
And that just creates a lot of demand for your team if you do that. I mean, there's always a need, but focus in your house first and make sure you prove that.
It's really well said. Is there a playbook or a formula on number of campaigns? You got to do 4 a year, and you got to mix it across different social media platforms and SEO and SEM. Is it a monthly, weekly, quarterly? Like, what's the cadence? You look at your best performing clients that you've gotten maximum results from. And we've said that both at the prospect and customer level and also at the employee level, because it's a recruiting tool with what you guys do. What's the playbook? Is there a way to think about it? If I'm the business owner, I've kind of just done some things on our own. Remember, a majority of the audience is still see my trucks and get referrals, and they're ready to kind of jump in and make an investment. And I really believe that spend is different from investment.
You're right.
Is there a cadence? Is there a pace? Is there a formula where you say to a business owner like me, this is what you need to do? Like, talk about that for me.
We do very similar things for all of our clients, but the mix and the concentration is different because everyone's business and their mix of services, the clientele is different. So I would say, to your point about investment and spending, focus on investment first. What do you own as a brand? Mm-hmm. You own your website, you own your visuals, the videos, the images, and invest wisely there. Make sure you're investing quality. Make sure you're consistently investing there. So a new website every 5 to 6 years, freshen it up, keep it looking current, make sure there's additional functionality there. And then visuals, that's a constant every year thing. New project pictures, new team pictures, new client pictures, case studies, all those things. And then the other things you're talking about are, what's the activities that we can do from a marketing perspective throughout the year to keep that machine running. And everything has seasonality. So you have to kind of stay ahead of that, and you have to plan out what an ideal year would look like, but be able to pivot. And so, you may know how many email campaigns. You may have a very specific content calendar for your blog and your social media. You may know where your paid placements and your ads and where those dollars go. Be proactive and plan it out, and then make sure it meets the demand of what people are actually wanting from a consumer standpoint throughout the year.
Makes sense. And I think a lot of times there's still eyes wide open. Maybe most business owners in the industry, they don't really have any benchmark of what that spend looks like. Mm-hmm. And me, I like analytics. We have to be in that analytics world in our core business. But if you think about spend, all right, the deal guy in me starts tracking what? All right, what analytics, what tools can we basically say, what results, what ROI am I getting? Yeah. And you guys spend a lot of time eyes wide open there, cognizant of investment and spend, but also, and Scott's done a great job with our group here and working with you guys at Landscape Leadership on, hey, look at the analytics, we're winning. Yeah. Can you talk about some of those standard tools or how you should measure when we engage, a firm like yours? Yeah,
I think, again, you have to always keep in your mind, what are we measuring from an investment and payoff, or what are we measuring from a expense and payoff standpoint? Mm-hmm. There are certain things, like in a vacuum, if you do a Google Ads campaign or a paid social media ad campaign, you're going to know what you spent in 3 months. You're going to know what you got out of it. Now, part of that is an exercise in branding. You're trying to, over a long period of time, establish brand affinity. So you need to get impressions, you need to get reactions, engagement, and that sort of thing. Yep. But from a lead generation standpoint, there are certain things you should be very critical of. Like when you look at your Google ad spend, how much did you spend? How many phone calls and leads did it generate? Yep. And is that marketing medium working, or do we need to change anything? But I would also caution the audience to think about the long-term payoff of certain things. When you spend $20,000, $25,000, developing this amazing custom, really content-rich website, you're not going to see that ROI the first year. So when you go to year 2 and year 3, you're going to also be seeing return on investment there. So you have to look at all of it together and trust and believe that you're doing the quality things that are helping you land new clients. You're greasing the wheels of sales too. That's the other thing, is marketing assets can be used in the sales cycle. If your salespeople are repositioning those case studies and articles and guides in that sales process, they're making their job easier. They're closing more. So you have to kind of step back and look at things and not be so pragmatic of like, what's our spend? What did we get out of that? And look at things in a wider time frame. Yeah.
It's a really good way to think about it. So, all right, I was just at an event in New York City, and it was mostly folks in the private equity world, and it was put on by Service Titan. Shout out to Service Titan. They had a tremendous series of products that are applicable for the landscape industry and skilled trades, field services. And being a technology company, there was obviously a lot of discussion on, where are things going next. But one of the things that stood out to me was the difference in the residential world, companies providing services to residential consumers versus providing services to that commercial world, which is typically what? It's facility services, managers, property owners. It could be HOA type stuff. And, typically there's, not to get too in the stereotypes, but there could be a longer sales process than, hey, I need to get my HVAC fixed, right? As an example. So how should people in the audience think about their approach when it's a commercial, industrial, B2B consumer or prospect versus Mr. and Mrs. Jones, where I know I got to service my HVAC, I'm going to need some pressure washing, my tree work, etc. It's a different formula, isn't it?
It's absolutely different. Those services that are like necessities, you need them. There's some sense of urgency. They're not typically a high ticket value, like it's just like a lawn care program or some of the other services that you mentioned that are more maintenance driven. Consumers are going to make their minds up pretty quickly. So they're going to find somebody, they're going to hire somebody. But when you think about residential design build, even, I want to drop $200,000 in my backyard.
That's right.
Or I'm looking at, an account for maintenance at a commercial property that's $20,000 a month. They want to make that decision, and they're not quick to change and make, change providers or make that position different. So when you're looking at that, you have to look at, again, it comes back to not just looking at generating a lead and getting a form or a call. It's about how are we positioning ourselves in the mind of our consumer, and how are we also enhancing the sales process with all those marketing and sales assets. How can we close deals? If you get into a commercial bid situation, you may be, from the time you walk with the property manager till the time you're at the deal table to close that deal, it could be several weeks or a couple months. Maybe they're being proactive a few months ahead of time because the contract's coming to the end. Right. How can we keep that prospective client engaged? How can we get them so impressed with our brand and what we're doing for our clients and experience that we're going to show them what it's like? If you can do that, then it makes sales easier. And if you're just trying to solve a marketing problem without addressing the sales part of it, you're going to lose a good fraction of that.
I think it continues to be fascinating on kind of dialing in the right strategy. And I think it's even more competitive than it's ever been.
Yeah.
The days of just, I got a referral, it's amazing to see how much change has been developed in your world just in the last year.
Yeah, and even if you get a referral, people are still going to your social media platforms or going to your website because they want to validate if that referral was a good idea. Maybe do a little bit of research before they reach out to you, or after they reach out to you, they might be curious and go back to it. So that's why it's so important to stay consistent and to always be doing something to present great information to your prospective client about how they can make a better decision. You can't just stop when sales get slow and then hope to, start this machine up and all of a sudden have these great opportunities. You have to just keep after it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's pivot again. So there's a lot of people in the audience that have never engaged a marketing agency before. And we've talked about how competitive things are. What advice do you have for the entrepreneur, the founder, whoever's running the marketing department? Could be a handful of salespeople. How do you go out and figure out who's a fit and end up hiring the best agency? When I use the term agency, it just feels really corporate and really rigid.
Yeah.
And I think, our world of, $500 to $3-5 million in EBITDA, companies doing $5 to $100 million in revenue, agency feels pretty sterile and pretty corporate.
Yeah.
So is there kind of a process or a path there to say, hey, I know it's going to be an investment, but how do I pick the right group? What advice would you give there?
I have so many things I could say. I mean, personally, I believe you need to find someone that knows your industry. So there are specific marketing agencies that focus on a specific vertical, but also understand their story. Where do they come from? Were they a generalist marketing agency that decided to niche down? Not necessarily that's bad. Is that important to you? Understand their team members. How long have these team members been here? Who's going to be working with me specifically? What kind of industry experience do they have? What kind of marketing chops do they have? And then look at their client roster. It's the same things I'm saying that if you're evaluating a commercial maintenance company or a design build contractor, what's their portfolio? How long have they been working with people? What do those people have to say? Do they have reviews? Do they have case studies? Are their clients appearing on videos, endorsing them publicly? What kind of reputation and staying power do they have in our industry? And then do your due diligence, ask all the really, really great questions. We have great resources. Anybody wants to reach out to me, I have an article, 14 questions that you can ask any agency.
Yeah, fantastic.
And I don't care if you work with us or not. I want you to make a great decision. So it's really important that you ask the right questions and make a smart decision.
Yeah, it's well said. I think a lot of generalists in your world. There's a lot of generalists in our world, candidly, right? And it's been, I know for us at 3PG and even Source Experts, and for you, it's kind of our superpower, right? Like, how a business in this industry works. So do we. And again, that agency world is a lot of generalists. I hadn't thought about it that way. And then you want to have fun, right? I mean, you don't want a bunch of people that are dull and boring as part of your marketing.
No.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, listen, I want to just kind of get into like one or two must-dos, right? Sometimes we were just at a great event together with the folks from Weathermatic. And by the way, great job on your presentation.
Thanks.
I was sitting there thinking to myself, I was like, wow, this guy Chad, and not really this guy Chad, because we've known each other for probably 3-4 years, but I was like, wow, Chad's really good. He must speak all the time. And you had let on earlier that like, man, I was kind of nervous and I was trying to get in the right headspace. But is there one thing that a business owner could do today that really has never really engaged an agency? I appreciate what you said about here's the things you want to ask. But today, and we opened with AI, and we opened up with, how much change is happening daily. What's just one or two nuggets like, hey, you got to be doing this, or one piece of advice that you would give an owner?
Yeah, I'm passionate about visuals. I mean, we're such a visual industry. So you want to showcase your work and you want to do it in the best possible manner. Do you want to have a brand image that says we take the cheap way out and do what's fast and easy?
Yeah.
Or do you want to have your potential clients say, wow, this is amazing. This looks really, really great. Whether it's photos, telling great stories and videos, having a great production team that puts those together, having a good strategy about where you're going to use those images and videos, they have evergreen value. Like you can do photo shoots a couple times a year. You can do video shoots every year, every other year, and keep using those assets. Yeah. No matter it's your website, your social media, that's the number one thing I would say to recommend.
Yeah.
And you can scale this. Like you can start small and do a day or two a year, and then you can do a couple shoots a year, and you can get crazy with this and do all kinds of social content if you want. But that's probably the most important thing that I think that brands should do.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way. And it's funny because me, I'm type A. Like my attention span gets short when I'm reading a lot of content, but you want me to watch something. And again, being very visual, it's really, really great advice. So, all right. So I want to close with a couple things.
Okay.
I mean, you can't believe that we've been almost 40 minutes. It's just like, boom, it flies by.
Yeah.
You guys have done some incredible things with us. And you and I met many years ago at an event we were both attending. And I kind of called you out of the blue and said, hey, I'm ready to really launch the podcast and get into the podcast world.
Yeah.
And you and your team have been transformational for us in the business. So thank you. You've also been really intentional with your plan there, because being that we're both niche, you don't want to create conflicts. You don't want to have competing podcasts, et cetera. Right. Isn't that a growth area for you guys in various verticals?
Yeah, it is. So we made strategic hire. We've been making a lot of investments. We're launching the Landscape Leadership Podcast Network. You're our signature first show, if you don't want to count our show as well. And our goal is to have 10 to 20 green industry focused shows with exclusive categories. So Jeff, you're our M&A show, right. The Deal Factory, and we're the marketing show. So sorry, you can't have that if you're a marketing vendor. Yeah. But we would love to help people like us that help the industry but aren't necessarily contractors, because I get requests frequently of, hey, I know you're in this space, you're in this industry, can you do ours? And I would say, sorry, we don't work with consultants. Yeah. But now we have a vehicle that we can create really great content like this, and we can create micro clips, put it out on social media, and help you get your message out and showcase the people that you get to work with on a regular basis so that you can expand your reach in the industry. So that's our vision, is to get shows like that, people that are serious, that have created spaces like this, that want to utilize it well and have a great network and just need help putting the pieces together and having an intentional path forward. That's what we're after.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Number one, I'm having a lot of fun, and we're getting great results. So great to be in studio.
Definitely.
Thank you for your passion. You and I share a lot of common passion for the industry and the trade that we work in. So it's been a thrill to have you in studio. It's fun, right? We could probably do a whole series of fun things.
We could.
You can rent this place out from me too, right? I mean, I know you're printing money, man. Don't you need to rent a studio?
We'll just send people down here. We'll keep flying to Atlanta.
Hey, listen, all kidding aside, make sure that you like us on all of the different platforms. Check out the Deal Factory. Please join. Talk to your friends about us. And what's the best way to find you? You're out there everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
Just search for Landscape Leadership, Chad Diller. I'm on all the major socials. You'll probably be surprised with some goofy stuff that you see here and there, but a lot of really great thought leadership, things I try to drive home and teach people, and just connect with me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again, Chad Diller, everybody, and see you soon next episode. Thanks, everybody.